We're back.
A little bit.
A little bit. Right
Sort
now.
of.
Just right now.
Yeah.
We're back because as of late, I've had some feelings. And I'm not loving feelings.
No. And it seems like we're not alone
Right.
in having feelings that we don't particularly want to engage in.
It just felt like we really needed to come on and speak about this because for those of you who have been with us for our entire journey, who started with us, our original intention with WWLP was to cover this incredible series that was coming, HBO, now Max. And we were so incredibly excited because it was going to be a remake that was faithful to the books.
I think the exact verbiage that was used was a faithful page-by-page adaptation of the books.
I've always wanted that.
I think everyone has always wanted that, but until long-form TV content really became a norm.
We were going for this incredibly faithful page-for-page adaptation. As people who have read the books,
Numerous times.
we're familiar with some character descriptions.
This is going to be a discussion that some people might find a little bit contentious. You got two white people talking about not necessarily white people in a less favorable point of view, not about the person, but about what is happening in the greater scheme of things with casting. Because it's not just one character that we have a bone to pick with, but there is one that seems the most obvious to be upset by, again, not the person, but the situation. In summary, there's been a lot of frustration about the recent announcements of the casting choices. I'll start with the first one that was confirmed, which was John Lithgow. John Lithgow is the voice of Lord Farquaad.
Farquaad.
Is it Farquaad?
Farquaad. Lord Farquaad.
From Shrek. Fiona.
From Shrek.
And that's fine because he's been in a bunch of other roles. I'm not saying the casting's fine, but it's fine that he was Lord Farquaad, because he's been in a bunch of other roles. And in fact, he's even been in roles where he's been required to have a British accent. Case in point, he was Winston Churchill in The Crown. And in my opinion, he did a great job.
Yeah.
Really great job. And he's a dynamic actor. He's really can play a wide array of characters. Although I will say the timbre of his voice, got like this kind of trebly resonant voice that doesn't strike me as Dumbledore-esque. But you can change things about your voice.
I was going to say, I've seen an interview where he has said before the series he will be working with a vocal coach.
Yeah, and a dialect coach and all sorts of other, So that is one thing people have been upset about because historically, the perspective has been if you're going to be cast for a Harry Potter franchise creation, really citing the movies, you need to be from the UK.
Yes.
I will say that was pretty important the first go around, so much so that an amazing, would have drawn tons of people to the box office actor, Robin Williams, had originally tried to audition for Hagrid, like desperately wanted to be Hagrid. And they said, you're not from the UK. You cannot audition. And his whole team just like begged. And it was a no-go.
No offense to Robbie Coltrane.
No, because Robbie Coltrane was Hagrid. I mean, he was perfectly cast.
Perfect.
But the point is, they really stuck to their guns. After the announcement of the series came out, and the discussion of casting was brought up, I think most of us were led to believe that the same rule applied. And I do think that there were some press junkets that actually said, yeah, we're going to be looking for all UK actors and blah, blah, blah. And I know, at least for the kids, that is the case.
Yes.
But I thought that was going to be the case all the way around.
I thought that was going to be the case all the way around. And I think it's important because it plays into sort of the like connection between the cast.
And the culture.
And the culture.
You know, it's 2025 and things are way different than they were even when the series came out in the late 90s, early 2000s.
Right.
And different than when the series is supposed to take place, which is the 1980s to 1990s. But still, UK culture is you know, Western and modernized as they are, is different than American culture. Take, for example, any comedy series, The Office, right?
Yes.
Big fan of The Office over here.
Huge fan of The Office.
But I don't know how much she would like the UK Office.
I've tried to watch the UK Office.
Totally
it's not
different.
bad. It's just not my sense of humor.
The humor hits totally different.
Right.
Right. UK humor is very different. The inverse is like, if you watch the show The In-Betweeners, the UK version is freaking hilarious.
Right.
And of course you have to have that sort of humor, but it's almost hilarious because of how offensive it is, and that is kind of like a UK thing. And the American version sucks. It's just not funny, in my opinion. With that said, you're gonna be lacking that cultural element. that you would have if you were casting an all UK cast. I will also say, after reading the Alan Rickman diary kind of book that they had put out and the Tom Felton Beyond the Wand, I found how people behave on set in the UK interestingly and amazingly different than how American actors behave on set. And I think that is going to be something that's challenging for brand new actors who are going to be committed to this for 10 years to be foisted into this really kind of tense, I think at times probably really anxiety provoking, even beyond what they have to do as actors and actresses, anxiety provoking environment with these adults who just like have a stick up their rectum because they are actors or actresses and think they're entitled to everything. That's John Lithgow. That was the first like really, this is confirmed. He's playing Dumbledore. I guess we're going to have to.
And honestly, on the record, based on his like performance as Winston Churchill, I do think that he is capable of doing it justice. He's the right age for the role. He's sort of looking for his sun-setting role. And I think that positions him really well.
And honestly loves the books. Like he really likes the storyline.
Right. So there is a lot going for him. I just think that could have an impact. I'm not saying it will. I'm not saying it's going to be bad.
And would love to be wrong about that.
Right. Because I think that he has potential. But something to watch.
And the point with the John Lithgow side of things is, if that was a rule, and that has already been a rule that's been broken or bent for no apparent reason, because it's not like you can't find an older, UK actor that would have taken up that role and done a great job.
Right.
Even if they're not like a big name, right? Like this could have been a lesser known actor, and it honestly might have been a good thing. If they're going to break that rule, what else are they going to break? Which leads us to the next one. You're going to have two white people talking about a role that was a white person. We got some receipts for that being replaced by a black actor. There's a whole nother discussion to be had about race swapping, and we're not going to get into all the political and social perspectives on that.
Right. But I think it's important to start the conversation by saying we have taken a look at the actual verbatim book descriptions.
Yeah, and which we'll get into to support it. But I do want to start off by saying, like, this is not a matter of having a problem with anybody of any race playing any roles. It is a matter of making changes for the right reasons. And that reason should always be to be in service of the story being told, and to be in service, in this case, because of what we were being told was being done, in service of creating that faithful adaptation we were being promised. We have a gentleman, I want to make sure I say his name right. Papa Asidu, I believe is how he pronounces it. He's a 34-year-old man of color. He's black. He is English. He's from the UK.
Handsome, 34-year-old black man.
Yep. Who meets none. And I literally mean none of the physical descriptors of Severus Snape. And the only thing that matches Snape's character is his age. That is it, because he's 34. Snape would be around somewhere between 32 and 34 at the time that Harry comes to Hogwarts. That has been all over YouTube. If you're watching this video, you've probably seen another video or several other videos commenting on this. The thing that I found interesting, because I'm going to list probably while I'm talking right now, a screen grab of me scrolling through just a brief playlist I made. I literally typed Snape in YouTube and just started saving a bunch of all the videos that just came up first. And it took me forever to find a video that wasn't on this subject. Like even like some of the funny Lego videos about, Snape, some of the like Harry Potter puppet pals, all those things, those were way down. References from the original movie, way down. It was all on this subject.
Because it's absurd.
I think I might have seen one after like scrolling.
No less than 12 scrolls.
Yeah. I might have seen one that was kind of like in defense of the Snape casting. Everything else, and again on screen, I'm going to scroll through. Everything else is talking about how this is not a good decision to have made for so many reasons.
So let's start with the description.
I went through the tedious task of typing in the word Snape or Severus, as well as some physical descriptors, and searching each individual word through every single book. Because I had read and heard that Severus Snape is one of the most heavily described characters in the book. So, and that doesn't mean he's given the most adjectives to describe his physical appearance. He is one of the characters whose physical description is referred to the most in all the books out of every single character.
And he's got a lot of descriptors.
Including Harry Potter. And the book's about Harry Potter.
It's entitled Harry Potter.
Yeah, every book actually has his name at the beginning. Harry Potter and the. And despite that, Severus Snape is described more times than any other character. And the description oftentimes uses the exact same words. And so I'm going to use those first, but I'm going to make you listen to every single one that I found. And there's not a ton, but for describing the same character again and again and again, sometimes more than once in the same book, there's enough.
We're going to pick one quote from every book, and it stays
pretty much the same.
Identical.
So, Chapter 7, The Sorting Hat. Professor Quirrell was talking to a teacher with greasy black hair, a hooked nose, and sallow skin. That was Severus Snape. Next chapter in the same book. His eyes were black like Hagrid's, but they had none of Hagrid's warmth. They were cold and empty and made you think of dark tunnels. Now, I gotta say, I look into Papa Asuto's eyes. They're not black and cold. That dude has warm eyes. They are inviting.
I was going to say.
He seems like a very nice man to be around.
Yeah, he seems nice.
Yeah, does not seem like.
And not that Alan Rickman doesn't seem nice outside of Harry Potter, but also.
But if you listen to any cast interviews from any movie he's been on, his physical presence was daunting.
Yes.
Kind of like Snape.
Kind of like Snape.
Right? And in the books, they talk about Snape and Minerva, how their presence in a room commanded respect. Not that Asuto wouldn't command respect, but probably more because you want his attention.
Right.
More than you want to avoid his attention because you're terrified.
It's in such a different way.
Yeah. As Gryffindors came spilling onto the field, he saw Snape land nearby, white-faced and tight-lipped. Now, you might argue, white-faced? Well, that just could mean pale. I have never in my life described or heard a friend describe a man of color as white-faced. Even if trying to describe them as pale, like, dude, are you feeling sick? You don't look okay. You might say gray.
Or green.
You might say green. You might say like clammy. You might say, dude, you don't look so good. I've never heard a man of color refer to another man of color as white, or a Caucasian man refer to a man of color as white.
Not saying that it couldn't happen, just saying on the statistical average, it feels unlikely.
Right.
And we're drawing the assumption that that's not what Joan was referring to.
Right. It was an intentional descriptor.
Right.
Because she does use another term to describe the, paleness and all that stuff. We'll get into that. But white, tight-lipped, Harry felt a hand on his shoulder and looked up and saw Dumbledore, who said, well done, blah, 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 blah. Next book, Chamber of Secrets, The Whomping Willow, Chapter 5. There, his black robes rippling in the breeze, stood Severus Snape. He was a thin man with sallow skin. Look up the definition of sallow skin. It's white, pale, sickly, as if you haven't gotten enough sunlight or you are physically ill.
Just a yellowish tinge.
You can have a yellowish tinge, which, if you were going to say that another nationality could play this guy, I guess the closest you could get is one of the Asian ethnicities. You could do that because there are Chinese and Korean individuals who have pale skin. So you could say if you were going to change the race, you could make it Asian, but not black. He had greasy shoulder-length black hair. At the moment, he was smiling, told Ron, blah, 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 blah. Sallow, pale, hook nose, greasy black hair. That's the other thing. I have pretty much never seen a black man with really greasy hair because
or a hooked nose.
Because the texture of individuals with any sort of African ethnicity, including Dominican and things like that, don't tend to have the type of hair. It's like the physical locks of hair are thicker,
right,
and don't tend to get greasy as well. And I will even say my hair compared to my wife's, right? And we're both Caucasian. My wife is Spanish, but we're both Caucasian. She has physically thinner strands of hair.
Same.
I have much thicker strands of hair. It would take me a full week of not washing my hair at all for it to really get greasy. And that's despite me putting my hands through it and stuff. And I'm Italian and I sweat just standing still. You could probably see me glistening on camera right now. She, on the other hand, can go a day, and if she doesn't use some sort of dry shampoo or something, it automatically looks greasy. So the greasy hair descriptor in and of itself is another thing that implies probably not a black man's hair,
right,
because they just don't have that tendency. And his hair is always looking greasy. Talons and Tea Leaves is chapter 6. Yes. Snape's grudge, sallow face, twisted with fury, blah, 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 blah.
long nostrils.
Yep. Long, not wide, because certain nationalities do have a wider set to their nostrils.
Right.
And that's not just black. There aren't multiple, but his are not wide at all. Cat, rat, and dog. Snape steps into his room. His eyes were cold and dark. His face twisted with fury. Uneven, yellowish teeth were bared. I mean, they're going to have to do a lot to pop out his mouth because he's got beautiful white teeth.
Beautiful white teeth.
Book 4, Goblet of Fire. Snape sitting next to Sinestra, sallow-faced, hook-nosed, greasy-haired potion master. By the way, Sinestra, we don't get any physical descriptors of her. She could be white, black, whatever you want. The weighing of the wands. He pointed a long yellow finger at Malfoy and said, explain. Well, how is his finger yellow if he's black? Even if he was an avid smoker,
Right.
the staining on your hands is different from the use of cigarettes all the time. You could say his nail beds were yellow, sure, but not his hands.
Order of the Phoenix.
I do. Hold on. I like this one. Chapter 28, The Madness of Mr. Crouch. Leaving Snape standing next to the gargoyle, looking twice as ugly. Again, Papa Aceto is a handsome dude.
He's a handsome man.
And there are multiple times where Snape is described as conventionally unattractive,
Right.
aka ugly.
And I think like that is one thing that I'm really hoping this series like doesn't shy away from. If a character isn't supposed to be attractive, they don't have to be an attractive actor.
Don't cast a handsome dude
Right.
to play an ugly person. Ugly people want to act too.
I was gonna say,
Right?
is this not an opportunity for ugly people?
I know. Let us
Or
shine.
less conventionally attractive people?
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, again, I have nothing against Papa Aceto, but good God, he's a handsome man.
There's so many other roles he could play.
So many, which we have.
Yep, we'll get to that. Chapter 24, Occlumency. His black eyes glittered and his pallid face was twisted with dislike. Pallid, pale, white. As Snape swept and looked down his hooked nose, again, hooked nose, at it without comment, which meant he could find nothing to criticize. Okay.
A small, skinny boy with a sallow, pointed face and greasy black hair.
Was watching them. So that's another important part. He's going to have a boy actor cast as him because there are flashback scenes. That boy is going to have to be a person of color, and that boy was also described as sallow-skinned. Snape looked paler than usual and angrier, blah, 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 blah. So when he's learning occlumency, we see Harry is learning occlumency from Snape, and he dips into Snape's memories that are in the pensive or however you want to see it. He sees Snape as a kid getting picked on. We're going to come back to that scene because it's very important beyond not matching the physical descriptors.
I feel like we've done a pretty solid.
Yeah, so I'll just sort of count. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 references in the first book, 3 in the second book, 4 in the third, 4 in the fourth, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 in the fifth, 3 in the sixth, 2 in the seventh. Yeah, 25 references. These are the characters that could be cast as
25 references.
That's a lot. Yeah, when you already know what he looks like. And sort of the rule of thumb is when introducing a character, you usually provide physical descriptors first.
Right.
And then their name, you reveal who it is.
The description has been provided.
And Papa doesn't match any of them.
At all.
None of them. He's too handsome. He's not pale.
He's not gaunt.
He's not gaunt. He doesn't have a hooked nose.
Sallow.
He's not sickly or sallow.
He doesn't have long, greasy black hair.
And you're going to have to put a wig on him and you're going to be like, dude, that's a wig. Like, that's not a man who looks like him's hair. He doesn't have hideous teeth, which, I mean, again, some of these things can be accomplished with makeup and they're going to have makeup on them anyways. But is it believable? No.
And so, like, I took some time and I was like trying to find any reason that he would have been cast as Snape. And I've listened to interviews. I've looked at some of his previous work. He's a handsome, talented man, but the timbre of his voice is wrong.
Yeah. The type of English accent he has is totally not fitting for somebody like Snape. Everything about his character speaks to someone who should be, I think, in a more inviting and kindly role.
Yes.
Not somebody who would be
Supposed to be off-putting and distant.
yeah, and generally disliked.
Right.
You know, not necessarily by everybody on screen, but the main character that you are like behind and rooting for, Harry, actively hates this dude, and his interactions with him start to get you to develop a distaste for this guy too.
Yeah.
So do we want to put a man of color in a role where we're meant to hate him?
Right. We're meant to hate him, and we're building up the whole time for him to ultimately kill the main character.
Another main character. So I'm going to talk about some of the things we were alluding to when providing as physical descriptors, because this has come up in multiple people's sort of takes on this. And even in the articles that I was reading that kind of try to defend, sometimes these kind of things are okay. They have said that Warner Brothers and HBO have made a totally untenable situation for themselves. And I could not agree more.
There was a Forbes article on it.
Yeah. And here's some context that I think really matters. And Forbes did touch on this, but I was having a conversation with my brother about this whole subject first. And he said, I want you to think about a particular scene. And then Forbes actually had commented on this. Harry sees in the pensive his dad and the other Marauders. And in the books, this is more even than we see on screen. It's even worse.
This was when he was learning occlumency.
Yeah.
You said in the pensive.
Yeah, Snape's memories are in the pensive. So it happens different in the movies than it happens in the book.
Oh, right.
In the movies, he casts Protego and he sees into Harry's memories.
Yes.
Which he does do in the books, but these memories that we see in the movies
he had taken out, so
that
couldn't happen.
Yeah, so those weren't the memories he sees when he casts Protego. What he sees in the movies happens when Snape has to leave the classroom for something and he looks into the pensive. He sees his dad picking on Snape. And basically, he sees multiple examples of him bullying him.
I was going to say, it's not picking on, it's full-fledged bullying.
Yeah. Now, it starts with other memories. It starts with some of his interactions with Lily Evans and stuff like that. But then it goes to the time where he's sitting under the tree and, who wants me to take off Snivelly's trousers? And there's more to it than that in the books because they actually start basically dueling. He slashes James's cheek and they're fighting and he hangs him up. He does hang him upside down. You can see his underwear. Think of it like this. Young black kid from a poor area with an abusive father, joins school, gets picked on by a group of white kids, ends up growing up feeling separate and jaded and pushed out and like nobody really cares about him, was in love with this white girl they met before school. They go to school, she falls in love with some white dude and says, no, I'm sorry, I'm going to be with him and not you because you're making all the wrong choices. Which in Snape's case was true, feels put down by everyone, wants a little bit of power for himself, so he joins a gang, makes all the wrong decisions. It kills people, makes terrible decisions. And then when he comes back to the school to be a professor, he's abusive to a bunch of little white kids. In that context, I don't understand how anybody is sitting around a table, all these executives are sitting around a table and saying, yeah, this is a good idea.
It changes the story.
And it changes the dynamic between, Snape and Harry's dad. Like now Harry's dad is a racist piece of crap who bullied this kid who was poor and black. And it feels like that's why he's bullying.
Right. It changes the meaning behind various scenes.
The other part of that particular scene is Snape uses what is the equivalent of a racial slur towards Lily. You've got somebody who now you're viewing as sort of racially discriminated upon, who's now using a racial term against somebody else, and that's the Mudbloods. And that's one of the big things that separates him and Lily, right? That's one of the big things that makes it say, you've gone too far. You're hanging out with all these bad characters and you're calling me these, hurtful terms. Nobody who is really my friend would call me that. That really changes the dynamic. I hate that. I think that is the freaking worst. The other part of it is you already have the story about why racism is bad in the movies. And the subtlety of it, I think, is something that kids can resonate with more so than the putting it in your face. Because the kids who are watching this at 11 years old or even younger aren't picking that aspect up. Because I truly think if you're a racist piece of crap, that has to be taught to you. Racism is not innate. And there may be some innate fear of the unknown for some people, but real racism is not innate. Mm-hmm. That is taught. That's bad parenting and surrounding yourself with crappy people. But the subtle sort of references to racism provided by the pure blood mania, it was kind of an allegory to Hitler, thinking that the Aryan race was supreme. And I think that was a good comparison to make. And again, kids aren't even going to get that reference. But there's enough there to be wow, these people are crappy because Hermione comes from Muggle parents, she's one of the best of her year. And Slughorn makes this point. Oh, no, don't think I'm prejudiced. Some of my favorite students were Muggle-born.
Right.
And he cites Lily. Lovely Lily. So yeah, I think that point is going to get really lost behind this in-your-face kid of color is getting picked on by a bunch of white dudes. I hate it. And not just because I'm a white man, I think that takes away from the actual story elements.
I just think that Rowling has written an incredible story
Yeah.
already. And I don't think we need to add or change messaging.
Yep.
Especially because, as we said earlier, this is supposed to be a faithful page-for-page adaptation of the book. And I think it's important to know, race swapping is cool.
Well, if it serves a purpose,
If it serves a purpose, it's fine.
and if that means you're getting the best person for the role,
Right.
The complaint was there's a lack of diversity in the characters. No, there's not. If you contextualize it, this is 1980s, 1990s UK. Think of who was part of the major population. It was pretty much all Anglo-Saxon, like white people. And aside from that, you had Indian population, because at the time, India was pretty much governed solely by the UK. The Patels are represented in that. You have the Patel twins, and there were some other Indian extras in the films. Mm-hmm. You may have had some people of color, like black individuals, but not a lot, because the percentage of people from like Africa and places like that would have been incredibly low at this point in those areas. You may have had some Asian immigrants. Cho Chang was in there. There was a couple other Asian actors and actresses, but they weren't, front and center. That's true. But predominantly, you would have had white individuals. This came up when they were casting for the Cursed Child play, and they made Hermione black. And people got all up in arms, and they said, well, I never said she was white. You literally did. You also approved all the drawings for her, for all the art. She also drew Snape. But Hermione's parents were dentists in the 1980s and 90s. That is still a white-ass job.
not that there aren't other races that do it, but if I told you to picture a dentist, a couple of dentists.
You're picturing a white man with a pocket protector, and he probably has glasses.
Yeah.
And that's a stereotype, because like my dentist is a buff white dude. And so both of her parents were dentists.
Right.
Statistically speaking, at least she would have been half white, but she was white. Right. So this race swap thing, I think, in my opinion, is probably J.K. Rowling's effort to, if she's even involved, right? We don't know how involved she is in the casting process. She was incredibly involved in the films. We're assuming she's involved because she said she was going to be. If that's the case, then I'm sorry, but this to me seems like a ploy to grab back some favor from the people who are pissed off at her about her tweets that were considered or accused of being transphobic, and have whatever opinions you want on that. But the fact of the matter is, if those were your views and you stand by them, don't compensate in another way to try to gain people's favor back. The people who are pissed off, and they're going to be pissed off no matter what. The people who are pissed off but could kind of like say, okay, well, you know what? It still doesn't affect the art, and that's what I'm here for, the art being the story. They're over it. And the people who weren't pissed off weren't going to be pissed off, but you might start pissing some of them off now.
It just seems unnecessary, and it goes against all of the book descriptions. We've taken a look at the book descriptions.
Yeah.
And there are a number of characters that were white in the original movies.
Yep.
That could very much be a different race.
Yeah. And I will say there are black main characters.
Right.
If I remember correctly, the original character cast for Dean Thomas was white, I think, like in the first movie. Mm-hmm. We never get to see him sorted like you do in the books, so it doesn't really matter.
Right.
But he's not provided a strong physical description other than, I think, being tall and being a huge fan of soccer. But he ends up being a black character on screen, and that dude went on to do a lot of other roles and is a great actor.
Yeah.
Lee Jordan, black. Black in the books, black in the movies. Mm-hmm. Angelina Johnson, black in the books, black in the movies.
Yeah.
I don't want them race swap. No. I don't want Angelina Johnson to be a white chick. She's black, right?
Right.
And that actually plays into the Weasleys being purebloods, being acceptant of people. I mean, they're white as hell. They're ginger, right? And they have no souls. But still, despite that,
whiter than that.
Despite that, they were acceptant of people of other colors because one of them is dating Angelina Johnson. They're also acceptant, and this is the really important part, right? For the story, they're acceptant of people who are not pureblood. And they are one of the 28 families that are pureblood. Like, they're a legit pureblood family. They don't care if you're Muggle-born. They don't care if you're a half-blood. They don't care if you're pureblood. That doesn't matter to them.
No.
And that's made a point several times throughout the series. So, I'm sorry. We were moving on to something else, but I thought that was an important point. I don't want anybody race swapped if it's not serving the story. I don't want white actors to be replaced with black. I don't want black to be replaced with white. Asian with another. Like, just leave the characters how they're supposed to be.
Right.
Albus Dumbledore. Could he be race swapped?
Yes.
He was tall, thin, and very old. Judging by the silver of his hair and beard, which were both long enough to tuck into his belt, he was wearing long robes of purple cloak that swept the ground and high-heeled buckled boots. His blue eyes were light, bright, and sparkling behind half-moon spectacles. His nose was very long and crooked, as though it had been broken at least twice. Now, the long and crooked nose, as if it's been broken twice, neither actor that played Dumbledore had that description. So if it's one physical characteristic, I think we can get past it. The blue eyes, contacts. It looks a little weird on a person of color.
No, there are very handsome.
Yeah, but they're usually not like, they're not pure bloods. No, I'm just
They're
kidding.
not pure
They're not
bloods.
usually like fully black. That's
Gotcha.
a man who's usually mulatto, mixture of white and black.
I
I don't think that's an offensive term. If it is, I'm sorry. I'm not trying to use it that way. But somebody who's mixed race, for example, Blasians. Handsome as hell. Holy crap. Like, so jealous of the
Oh my God,
amazing
yeah.
genetics most Blasian men have. So there's nothing there to say he's white.
No.
And I went through some of the other books on Albus Dumbledore too, and I never saw anything that said or implied really strongly that he is a white man. I'm fine with that. He's got to have the tone and that like grandfatherly character, which I think easily could be done by a person of pretty much any ethnicity. Leading role, like super important leading role of somebody people love, revere, look up to.
And if we didn't have this hypothetical UK rule, which it doesn't sound like we do, Morgan Freeman.
Oh, hell yeah. He's already got gray hair.
He's already got the gray hair. He is the right age. He brings that presence that I need. His voice,
Oh my God.
he would be incredible.
I don't know if he can do a British accent though.
Okay.
And his vocal characteristics are so, I don't know that I want him to. You know?
That's so true.
But I mean, if we're going to just throw everything
Yeah, if
to the
we're throwing
curb,
everything out.
Samuel L. Jackson. Did you put your name in the mother goblet of fire, Harry? You know?
He would do a great job.
Right.
And he would look stunning in long purple robes.
But no. I don't think he can do a
Not
British
actually.
accent. Idris Elba.
Oh my God.
Idris Elba, dude.
Yes.
Yeah.
Why
Didn't you think of that?
are we not casting the show right now?
I know.
Idris
That's
Elba.
the problem.
That's the issue.
I could see that.
And it follows the UK rule.
Yeah. Rubeus Hagrid. It doesn't describe him as being Caucasian. There are a lot of descriptors to him, and the main one that people look at is he was almost twice as tall as any normal man, at least 5 times as wide. He looked simply too big to be allowed and so wild, long tangles of bushy black hair and beard that hid most of his face. He had hands the size of trash can lids, and his feet in their leather boots were like baby dolphins. That was the most thorough description of him. There are other times where some of those, black beetle-like eyes or bushy black hair are used again. There's never something that talks about his skin tone.
No.
There are plenty of black actors who could play Hagrid that have that warm, fatherly, almost comically forgiving kind of characteristic to them, right? And Hagrid is great for that. He's somebody you are instantly in love with on screen. Also, if you're trying to make it so that we don't instantly draw parallels to Robbie Coltrane, dude, cast him as black. That was one of the few arguments I heard for like Severus Snape is Alan Rickman's portrayal of Snape was iconic.
Right.
And maybe casting him as a black man is going to help you try to separate the two. I don't think so. I think for Snape in particular, it's just a bigger point of contention.
I think it's a bigger point of contention. And I think that at a bare minimum, if they had just gone younger,
Yeah.
I think they would have hit a lot of it. However,
Because as fantastic as Alan Rickman was, he was way too old for the role.
too old for the role. However, if we weren't considering age, Adam Driver.
Well, and Adam Driver, especially with current technology, you can age down really easily. You can make him look the age at least. My only concern with him is the age he is now, how is he going to look 10 years from now? Because he's the age now that he should be at the very end of the series.
Okay, but it's a fair point. But Snape isn't really meant to age well throughout this time period.
That's true.
This is like a stressful...
But Adam Driver, you could age down and he looks the part. I think his
voice is what gets me.
Don't know if he can do a British accent. That's something he would need to work
fair.
on. But probably if you're paid that much, you should be able to.
Yeah.
I don't know about his nose. If I'm remembering, he has kind of a wider set nose. He does have bigger ears, although they don't comment about his ears, Snape's ears. But he's got the dark hair with a tendency towards looking at least greasy when there's a lot of light on it. There you go.
And he's like unconventionally attractive.
but conventionally unattractive.
Yes.
Like people are drawn to him, but you can also be like really put off by him.
Yeah.
He's been in multiple roles where you're like, dude, this guy's not all right. I don't want to be in the same room as this guy alone.
Right. And that's what Snape's supposed to give.
Gilderoy Lockhart. Now, this is Jasmine's. Mm-hmm. I'm going to vehemently disagree. He has to have that golden coiffed hair. The main descriptor used for him as a wizard who had just entered the shop was none other than Gilderoy Lockhart himself. He was wearing robes of forget-me-not blue that exactly matched his eyes, so he had to have blue eyes.
I forget what the guy's name from Bridgerton is, but there is a very handsome man who has blue eyes from Bridgerton.
His pointed wizard's hat was at a jaunty angle on his wavy hair. Hell, Papa Cito could play him.
That's what I'm saying.
And blue contacts. Come on.
You put blue contacts and like that very handsome man from Bridgerton would be incredible. And he's from the UK.
I think those are the biggest ones that we were thinking like those could be easily changed out and there would be literally no problems with that.
Changed out from what they had in the original movies.
Crabbe and Goyle, main characters on the screen all the time. They also have parents that are on screen because they're also Death Eaters. Now, there is that same connotation that, well, are the bad guys all going to be black? No,
Right,
I don't think they should.
It doesn't have to be someone who's black. Like that's the thing. It's like
Right.
I don't have an issue with other people playing like with different races playing different roles.
Yeah,
I don't care.
but Crabbe and Goyle not heavily described in terms of like their skin color or anything like that. Just that they're big and blocky and stuff like that.
I was going to say when I think of Crabbe and Goyle, I do think of Tweedledee and Tweedledum.
Kind of.
So that's the only thing, but that's like a personal issue. But I could get over that.
I mean, there's loads of other students. Loads that you could cast whatever ethnicity you want.
I wanted this so bad.
Yeah. Alistair Moody. You know, he's got a lot of descriptors, but mostly about how gnarly his like nose and eye and chopped off leg are. I can't remember if Lupin's skin tone is commented on. You couldn't do Sirius Black because
It's described as gaunt.
Who?
Sirius is described as gaunt.
Yeah, but anybody can be gaunt,
That's fair.
like thin and gaunt. But that's more of like your underweight kind of appearance.
Fair.
I want them to do this right. When I heard that HBO was doing this and when this show was announced, oh my God, I was so ecstatic.
Giddy. Is the word.
Giddy is the right word. I'm steadily losing hope.
Right. We were starting to plan our first watch party before we knew when the watch party would take place.
I bought silicone molds to make chocolate frogs.
Right.
We have a butterbeer recipe that
Is phenomenal.
is phenom, spiked and not spiked.
Right.
My wife has perfected pumpkin pasties.
We were so ready, so excited because we have both read and listened to the books so many times.
Watched the
and
movies so many times.
Watched the movie so many times.
I'm not going to compare to the movies. I don't want to compare to the movies.
No.
And I had my own complaints about the movies too. I just want them to get this right. And this really concerns me that that's not going to be the case.
So we have laid out our case. A billion other people, that's an exaggeration, I know that, but so many other people have laid out their case as well.
And some of these people are people of color saying this is not, like if you want to get more black guys in this movie or black women in this movie, this is how you go about it.
It is early. There is still time to course correct.
There is. And from what I understand, as of today, March 11th, 2025, he has not signed his contracts. They're in final discussions, which worries me, but he has not signed his contracts. I really hope that there's been enough pushback because there are like massive YouTube channels that are like, I want to defend this, but I can't.
I can't.
This is the wrong move. And honestly, it's not fair to Papa Cito. Like, you're going to put this guy in this role that nobody wants to see him in.
Right.
And there are a million other roles, even in this movie, that he could be in. And he's got to deal with that crap from day one. I don't like that either.
I don't like it.
It's going to be challenging enough filling the shoes of somebody so iconic as Alan Rickman.
I mean, that's terrifying.
And pretty much everybody who watched that movie series and was really into it is still alive and is going to see this.
Right. Irregardless of how things work out, I'm hoping that we can course correct that. But if it is too late, there is a sea of other characters that we need to cast. We have the descriptions written. We have artwork drawn.
We have multiple renditions with the, Mima Lima versions of the books, with the other illustrated editions and the deluxe illustrated editions, with the Kindle editions, because there's some imagery on those as well, with the original illustrations that the author herself did. There's so many references.
We know. what so many of these critical and unique characters are meant to look and sound and act like.
We do that?
Stick to that. Can we do that?
That's why people want this.
Right.
Is for that. Share your comments below. Please keep everything respectful.
Right.
You know, who would you cast as Snape?
I already covered Adam Driver.
If you had to follow the UK rules, who would it be? If you didn't have to follow the UK rules, who would it be? And who do you want for the other roles?
And Max.
Get it together. Yeah.
Please.
Fix this.
Fix it. Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye.